Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles. I want to welcome you guys to the conversation. So today I'm going to be talking about my man Paul George, y'all. That's what I want to get into this video today. And the question is, will the Clippers win a title if Paul George plays like an MVP, or at least like his former MVP self a few seasons ago? So that's what I want to get into in this video today. So all of you guys know who Paul George is, probably one of the top 10 NBA players in the world currently right now. Paul George is a pretty accomplished player in his NBA career. He's a 6-time All-Star. He's been on an all-first NBA team, been on 4 all-third NBA teams, been on 2 all-defensive first teams and 2 all-defensive second teams. He's also led the league in steals in the year 2019, which is just amazing. And he was also the most improved player in the NBA in 2013. Now, if we look at Paul George currently, we look at his stats this current season, Paul George, some of his production is dipped a little bit, but nevertheless, he's still been able to put up good numbers. It's just that his health has been the biggest issue. But for this season, he's averaging 21.3 points a game, 6 rebounds a game, 3.9 assists, and he's shooting 39% from the three-point line, and he's shooting 89.9% from the free throw line and 42% from the floor, which is not that really high. Now, if we look at his numbers this season before, when he was playing with Oklahoma City Thunder with Russell Westbrook and these boys, he was one of the top 3 candidates, for MVP, and also a top candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. Last season, he averaged about 37 minutes a game. He scored about 28 points a game that season, so his scoring was, pretty amazing. He shot 44% from the floor. He shot 84% from the free throw line, and he got you about 8 rebounds, 4 assists, and just around 2.2 steals a game. So his numbers last season were sensational, but obviously we all know that the Oklahoma City Thunder got bounced out of the playoffs by, Damian Lillard and the Portland Trail Blazers in an epic fashion, with the way he hit that walk-off three-point shot to score, I think, his 48th, 49th, and 50th point. So it was amazing, and actually he did it on Paul George, which is even more incredible, because Paul George is one of the best defenders in the NBA, standing at 6'8", weighing around 220 pounds. So he's one of the top two-way players in all of the entire league. So last season, unfortunately, didn't end on a high. Now, towards the end of that series, Paul George, over the offseason, actually had to get shoulder surgery. So when he was acquired by the Clippers to go play with Kawhi Leonard and these boys, Kawhi was the one that was the main recruiter, and he went to the upper management of the Clippers with Jerry West and Doc Rivers and these boys and told me, go get Paul George, and they somehow were able to get him from the Oklahoma City Thunder while he was still under contract with them. So I still don't know how they were able to maneuver that trade or, pull that off, but nevertheless they did. So there was all this hype going into this season, because after seeing how Paul George performed the season before, playing these amazing, games and putting up these MVP type numbers and just really tore up the league, especially towards the end of that season, the 2018-2019 season. There was a lot of high hopes going into this season, just sort of imagining how Kawhi and PG were going to gel on the floor. And a lot of people saw some semblances of the Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan Bulls, because these are 2, really big, strong two-way wings that are playing on your team. And, one of them is a former Defensive Player of the Year in Kawhi, and the same thing was with MJ, and Paul George is a stellar defender. The same thing with Scottie Pippen, and Paul George is a sensational scorer. So a lot of people thought that if you just airdrop these 2 players into what the Clippers already had, because remember, the Clippers with a bunch of just role players essentially were able to go against the Golden State Warriors last season and take them to 6 games with a healthy Kevin Durant. Now, granted, it was a different system, so to speak, because you have different players. So obviously you run different offensive sets, defensive sets. But nevertheless, they still had the nucleus of competitive players that were able to push a Golden State Warriors team to 6 games in the playoffs, which is pretty astonishing. So this is the team that Paul George was joining. But going into training camp, he had his surgery. So he wasn't able to participate in training camp that the Clippers had in Honolulu, Hawaii this offseason. So what ended up happening was it became this whole sort of storyline of the team not really scrimmaging and practicing a lot together, which at certain points in the season seemed to be a glaring issue. Now, and during the All-Star break, inside the NBA, Charles Barkley sat down and spoke to Kawhi Leonard along with Shaq and Kenny and Ernie Johnson and others. They asked Kawhi, he asked him, hey man, how many times have you guys actually practiced this season? And he said, we've practiced no more than 10 or 12 times the entire season, which I thought was astonishing. And due to the lack of, playing time and Paul George not being available and being in and out of the lineup, his numbers have suffered a lot. All of his production, numbers have dipped tremendously. Last season, he averaged 28 points. This season, he's averaging 21. His rebounds are down by 2. His assists are down. His field goal percentage is down. The only thing that's been improved is his three-point shooting, and I think that has to do because with the fact that he's playing with a lot of great shooters and playing with a lot of great offensive players like Lou Williams and Kawhi Leonard and Montrezl Harrell. So it allows him to be a really good catch, spot up shooter, which he has the ability to do at a very high level. And that's the reason why you see him shooting essentially 40% from the 3-point line. But this season, he's only played 35 games. I mean, just put that into perspective. And he's only averaging 29 minutes a game. Now, I want to say that for all the people that, are Clippers followers and like the Clippers, we do read your comments and we see some of the things that you guys say. And I think a lot of people out there have sort of this fear that that Paul George is kind of the weak link on the team. Not weak in the sense that he's not a great player, but I think a lot of people don't seem to trust him. Number one, because of his history in the playoffs. He's never really been able, proven to take a team maybe to the, to a conference finals before on his own. And, last season, the way the season ended with the Oklahoma City Thunder, and now looking at what's happening because of his hamstring injury that he's suffering, I think a lot of Clippers fans are beginning to wonder, hey, man, was this the right trade to make? Should we have gotten somebody else? And all of these different things. And I think it's a good, reasonable doubt because, granted, the guy has been barely available. Now, what I want to say, though, is if he starts to become healthy, because now he's back up in the lineup as you guys have seen. Recently he was in the lineup against the Grizzlies and he played that game, although I think he only had about 11 points. But currently, as we're doing this video, the Clippers are still the number 3 seed in the Western Conference with a 38-19 record. So it's not like as if these guys are completely out of the playoffs. They're still a top 3 seed in the Western Conference. But I think what a lot of people are looking for, especially Clippers fans, is some reassurance that Paul George is going to pull it together come playoff time. Now, let me just say that the issue that Clippers fans are having with Paul George may be the same issue that they have with Patrick Beverley. Patrick Beverley has also been injured and he recently returned to the lineup. I think what we're beginning to see is that as players start to come back for the Clippers and start playing more games together and they start gelling, I think a lot of the fears that fans have of Paul George not being able to live up to the hype with this, dynamic duo that went into the summer and into what the season has been thus far, if he'll be able to live up to the hype. I think he will. Guys, just remember that there was a game in this season when Paul George and Kawhi Leonard scored 40 points together on the floor at the same time. So we've seen flashes that these guys can play really, really, really well together because their games complement each other so well. Kawhi Leonard is not a ball dominant player. He doesn't need a high usage rate in order to be effective. It's the same thing with Paul George. Both of these guys can play without the ball and catch and shoot off of moving screens and flares and all these different things. So they're really good at that. Both of them are really good spot up 3-point shooters as well. So they're going to mesh really well on the floor together. I think what needs to happen is they just need to play more games together and Paul George needs to get healthy. And I think if he gets back to his MVP form, because Paul George is a sensational scorer. You guys have to remember a lot of games when Kawhi was out, PG was putting up some really big, games as far as offensive output. He was able to score quite a bit on those games when Kawhi Leonard didn't play. So I think that if he does return to a semblance of his MVP form that he had last season, I think for sure the Clippers are going to do exceptionally well because, again, I believe that the pecking order with the Clippers is Kawhi, PG, and everything else. And what I think Kawhi needs is a consistent second scorer that can also play great man-on-man defense in the playoffs, which Paul George has shown the ability to do, and that's why he was one of the finalists for Defensive Player of the Year last season. So I think everything will be all right, and I just think that if he gets back to that form, everything is going to work out for the Clippers, barring health issues. So that's what I think. But what I want to know from you guys is, do you agree with me that if Paul George returns to his MVP form and plays like he did last season with the Oklahoma City Thunder before he got injured, do you think that the Clippers are in really good shape, really good position to win the title? Or you just don't really have the faith in PG and you need to see him do it and deliver in big moments at least one time in his career? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. I really want to know what you guys think about this video. Again, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell to be notified when all of our newest and hottest content comes out. Once again, this is Charles here from DreamersPro, wishing you guys an amazing day. Peace!